Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra,
And I'm Gayatri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people.
associated with the creation
Or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked.
and sometimes what didn't,
You will also hear very personal experiences.
and insights that would trigger your thoughts.
And inspire you to do even greater things.
Today, we continue our conversation with Sowmya Gopalan and Ramya Gopalan, the first software twins to be featured on this podcast. In the first part, they shared their origin story and also their experiences of working in cutting edge technologies. In this episode, we cover some technical aspects as well as some softer aspects. We paused the last episode with a question on how they paid forward to nurture young professionals. So, in this episode, Sowmya and Ramya continue to share how one might feel hesitant to approach colleagues or seniors, particularly when starting on a career. The importance of nurturing the quality of giving space to others, particularly to the junior members in the team. And while taking leadership roles, being open to solutions and valuing inputs from all, and about sharing the task to be done equally among the team members. They mentioned many points about their experience of being women in technology, that to leading edge technologies. We then touch upon a little bit on their thoughts on the metaverse and spaces which are removed from reality and the need for better regulation and ethics. The importance of data in machine learning and how to address situations where there may not be sufficient data is something that they share from their experience. We also look at using non-verbal cues while processing video to infer some intelligence. Same thing with audio signals, including probably some ridiculous ideas that I asked them about. We conclude with their career advice for persons starting in IT and also their approach to balancing work and life, which they call as the work-life harmony. Listen on.
Yeah, after listening to the two of you, and since you all said that you've had now many years of experience, what is it that you all do to, mentor younger people that are coming into the workforce? How do you, y'all have had this unique experience, what it's like to have somebody that you can always fall back on unconditionally, that can help you navigate through those tough spots or help you get unstuck, or just have somebody to air your thoughts with. First question is, how do you nurture that with younger folks that are coming into the workforce? And is there something that y'all have discovered that has worked for y'all in terms of nurturing or mentoring people around you?
Sure. I think when you're just fresh out of school, you have a tendency to look at your colleagues, your senior colleagues and your managers as somebody you can't approach and you have to treat with respect. But then I think which you still have to, but then they're also your peers. So always, I think shifting the mentality to, feel free to ask questions, because at least me, when I joined, I was pretty shy, and, I always, manager was always a one-way. I always thought it was a one-way communication, kind of setup, but it's actually two-way. So you can also, ask for things, voice your thoughts, and make it more friendly and make it more, it's not a school environment. And I think in terms of mentoring new people, so what I have generally admired in my seniors is when they have this attitude of, it doesn't matter how many years of experience you have, I will still listen to you and I will still respect you for what you bring to the table. I think I've definitely worked with many people who are like that. And I hope to be that way to people who are junior to me. So I think once you start growing in experience, you start probably assuming, and I think that's probably very human, that probably more experienced, but that does not mean that you should take for granted the suggestions that come from people who are slightly junior to you. And I've noticed that attitude in some of my seniors, and I've respected that. And I've tried to do the same, where I don't, I listen to everybody equally. And that's something that, I don't know, at least to me, it doesn't come very easily to everybody. So you have to train yourself to actually be that way. And that's something that I've looked up to. And in terms of mentoring, I make sure I don't seem not approachable to anybody. and the kind of teams that, and I guess too fixed in the way you want things executed or implemented. Because I think I think there are many ways to solve a problem. And I guess being open to, whoever has a solution, whatever solution it is, and just being open to different solutions and not being closed about, how it should be done. I guess, and also just value everybody's inputs, and also not take. So for me, what I have also respected in people is not take any task as too big or too small. And so it doesn't matter if you're 15 years experience or your 2 years experience. If there's something that is a task that you think, at least I try and not try and divide tasks just based on how easy or complex it is. I would like it to be equally divided across, at least that's my view. That's probably not the most business friendly view, but I think that's something that I have respected when I was a junior in seniors, and I probably want to do the same. However old I become, I think that's something that I would want to do. But in terms of mentorship, I think it's more, not less technical and more about soft skills. That's how I generally prefer to, when I talk to juniors, that's how it's the technical part, of course, you can manage. But in fact, some of the juniors come with better technical expertise because technology is advancing, and they probably did something in the graduate school that's more relevant to today, and so they're probably better at it. But in terms of mentorship, that's something that I try to imbibe in my day-to-day working, but I don't do it explicitly. In terms of explicit mentoring, I think I've had a couple of opportunities. I don't think I actively participate in anything explicit. I think Ramya has probably in a couple at Amazon, but it's more on a day-to-day how I interact with my juniors and colleagues.
Nice. Thank you, both of you.
I have to ask this question. You both are women in tech, right? And I'm sure me and Chitra are part of the women in tech conferences, enablement or mentoring. I mean, lots of work that we do. So I want to understand, being women who have who always wanted to be engineers and are doing it. What what are a few stories or any areas that you have found it? Has that been a amplifier or an accelerator, or it has been neutral to be women in your experience? What has been your take on it?
So Sowmya and I have had different experiences. We both joined Amazon at the same time, but I joined the audio signal processing team and she joined the computer vision team. And the computer vision team actually had a lot of girls at the time. In fact, more than the number. At that point, there were more women than men. So I was kind of a bit envious, but my manager was woman. But I've noticed, I mean, of course, now it's kind of come down as I'm noticing that the number of the ratio is kind of skewed, but I enjoy when there are more, women in the team, because then I don't know, it's again, something that I realized after I moved from Amazon to Apple, because at Amazon, I was surrounded by many female colleagues, and I took it again for granted that it's easier to bring up ideas. And I felt it was very natural for me to brainstorm and discuss when I was in a room where there was a good representation of women. I took it again for granted. And then I realized after I joined Apple, where the ratio actually, when I joined, there was just me in my team who was a woman. And now we have like 5, I think. Our team grew and we have a good representation of women. I realized how important it is to have somebody of your gender to just, I think it's a very, it's hard to explain, because you do bond equally well with your male colleagues. It's not that you don't bond well with your male colleagues, but there is this added comfort, which it's hard to explain why you feel more comfortable, but that representation is important. And people often look at it as just numbers, but the more female colleagues you have, the more diversity in personalities so just because you have a number doesn't mean you're going to bond with everybody equally, just like how you don't bond with every male equally. So I think the more you will have somebody you can relate to. And again, I took it for granted because I had, I would say, a very good friend and mentor when I joined Amazon, who was a female. That I noticed was probably very key to my development in my early years. So I think it's invaluable joining a team where there is good representation of women and men. I think is invaluable, and it might seem to maybe somebody who has a good rapport with anybody. It's not it's not as valuable as one might make it to be, but I have noticed in my personal experience that it's a huge factor. So yeah, I'm happy, at least when it comes to hiring, companies are being very mindful of improving the ratio and diversity.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for bringing that up, Gayatri. I think that was something I had in mind as well. Shiv, anything that you would like to interject with at this point?
Not about this topic, but then there are a few other, more of curiosity questions, I would say, since metaverse came up. Now, this is more of a point of view, no need for any homework. See, my concern, I would say, which also is something that I asked one of my recent guests, who has already been a serial entrepreneur in the metaverse space. 2 companies he sold and is a 3rd company and all that. The impact on the environment. Now, when you talk about blockchain and others, you say that the compute sources that you need and what it is going to cost. And whether we are moving further and further away from reality, which is when you say vision and audio and all that is real for me. Whereas these are all simulated environments and building something on top of something else, which is already kind of meta, right? So what are your thoughts on that? As to where are we headed?
I think it depends on the application. Like even virtual reality, I think nowadays they even use it to train surgeons, and I guess it depends on the final end use of the technology. Probably gaming and those sort of applications, I'm not sure if I'm entirely sold on. But yeah, I mean, if it's put to good use, I think there is the technology as such is can be used in different ways, and in terms of how it impacts, like even for instance, vision in our company, we use a lot of machines and GPUs just to train a model. And I mean, there is work and literature on how training, let's say, a language model, how much compute that uses and how much that can, how much CO2 or how much emission that can emit. So you would think, because we work on vision and audio, which seems like applications that people need, there is a lot of impact to the climate that can happen even with things like this. So I think people are cognizant that we have to be aware of the impact to climate and society. I don't know if it is regulated as much as it needs to be. I think in terms of regulation of technology, I don't think we are close to anywhere where we need to be. So, I mean, especially with the later Facebook controversies, there have been some hearings, but it's not moving at a pace that we need to be moving at. So I would say we need to be more regulated in the technology space in terms of what's really needed for us and what's not. And now you have a whole new field for ethical AI. So yeah, I think that has to gain more prominence. And we need more regulation actually, which we don't have right now. Because we're mostly profit driven, and people who are making these decisions are finally getting their salaries from companies. So I think we need an outside governance for all these needs.
Yeah, related to that, a couple of more questions. See, all this training that you talked about, now I'm moving to data that you use for training. One is, of course, people talk about weaponizing data so that you intentionally kind of poison the learning. But then there is another aspect, which is what do you do when there is not enough data? Because already you find a lot of tussle between, let's say, the data scientists and the people who are developing the algorithms as to how much data they can share. Because all of them want data. And then for testing, if I say I need data, they'll say that, no, I want to train. I can't give you this data. I can't use the same data for testing. But then when we do our natural way of thinking or deriving decisions, we make a lot of assumptions and approximations and probably projections when there is no data. So in both audio as well as visual or video processing, how much does it impact when you don't have data, or when some data is kind of probably missing?
Yeah, I think data is definitely gold for any kind of machine learning engineer or scientist. There are unsupervised and semi-supervised techniques where you try and see how you can leverage less data and do more of a transfer learning, or like you were mentioning, assuming things about how the model should be, putting some constraints. And I think that's something that is actively explored, because even, for instance, in Apple, there's this, I work with this data team. And so their whole job is to get data. And I mean, the number of data sets we have is incredible, but even then it's many times not sufficient for our applications. So there are new efforts where you try and learn data, obfuscate it, but still in a population sense, get some meaning out of it. There is private ways of getting data, not revealing anything about the user, but also helping your machine learning model. So there are techniques that people are exploring where they can try and see how to make use of less explicitly submitted data. But yeah, data is gold. Also, I think now there are techniques to synthesize data. So in audio, you can actually synthesize speech data, or even in health, you can actually synthesize some of your biometrics. So there's also effort to kind of use those ways to, get around your data problem. But yeah, definitely data is gold. And but there is, I think, a lot of active work and research that's happening for this.
So on data, one on the visual side, is there anything to understand, let's say, what we call as the non-verbal cues? I may be doing something, but my posture sometimes may indicate that I'm totally disinterested, or maybe I'm aggressive, maybe I'm something else.
So there is sentiment analysis. So facial expressions and posture, like you were saying, you can, or even gait. So based on how you move, it's mostly used for IDing purposes. So if I want to ID a person, gait and posture and all that is very indicative of the person. So, but yeah, there are those cues which make you understand. So even like gaze, right now, those are non-verbal cues. So even gaze tracking is something that's, it's well studied in computer vision, but how you apply it is also, you can use it for maybe detecting autism or something in the autism spectrum, but you can also use it for tracking what you're browsing. So yeah, there are non-verbal cues, and depending on the application, you can put it to good use or you can put it to misuse.
Yeah, similarly on the audio side, even though you're not working on it now, I see sometime back, I was a little surprised when the washing machine said that for diagnostics, all I have to do is press a button, hold the phone, and then there is a beep or a series of beeps, which will be interpreted by the other end. So how far are we from, let's say, Alexa, Siri, Cortana, Google Assistant, whoever, just listens to all the devices that we have around us and tell us that, hey, your fan needs maintenance, or something else needs to be done? Because today, what I see is more about filtering out all those noises. They're doing a pretty good job. But then instead of ignoring, is there something meaning that they can read into it and then help the users?
I mean, I think you're already there. I think it's just about, I don't think it'll fly too well with the customers if we say we're going to listen to your room fan and tell you that it needs repair. But I think the technology is there. Like, I mean, if it's, again, throw data and learn your models. But in terms of, listening to sounds and, extracting information from it is, we are there already. And I think every day, I guess read last month, now Alexa can even impersonate somebody's voice. So it's, I think the technology is there. It's just a matter of throwing in engineers and also many times features are culled because it's not something that's desirable. There's this whole product management chain that says, no, this is not going to sell. And so, fan noise. I mean, I think that was just one example, but, but I mean, we have sound classification. We have.
Now, I know in factories it exists already in a very limited environment and a controlled kind of situation. Trying to detect, particularly when you're looking at mechanical fabrications, any fractures that may be there in the metals. you can do non-destructive testing, and you can test them much before they get into larger assemblies and then possibly create problems later.
No, I think, yeah, now there's also a huge push for multimodal processing. So it's not just relying on audio or vision, but then combine sensory inputs.
Right.
And
I read this recently for elderly care, and based on their sentiment and how they have been behaving along with their medical intake and everything, there is a possibility to help. Of course, as you rightly put, right, it's not it's one is from a how easy is it to market and how big is your target market. The second is also the ethics, and is it possible to make it used correctly. I heard that the device that is used to track anything, right? It is also being used to, used by paparazzi to find out where where each of your, celebrity is and things like that. So any device, anything that comes to it can be used in every possible way that human intuition can take you. So.
Yeah, that's going to be a struggle because data doesn't have any meaning unless you apply context. And most of the time, context should have some PII at least. And if it has to be useful for an individual, otherwise you get classes of solutions. Yeah, somewhere I guess we will find a balance.
Yeah, I think PII, you don't get too much PII data, and even how it's handled within these companies, they're very strict about how you handle PII data. Yeah, they take it very seriously. Yeah, they take it very seriously.
Absolutely. Yeah. So with all this, with so many things happening, what would be your career advice? We normally have this question in most of our episodes, both for people who are considering a career now. Does it make sense to even get into, let's say, the deep R&D kind of areas, or stay more on the application side? Yeah. Similarly, people who've been the so-called mid-career, who want to know, I've done these things now, what should I do?
So in terms of how you should approach your career if you're starting off, and this is something that we got, at least both of us got advice even when we started off, was to be keep your ears and eyes open and be open to any area. Don't restrict yourself. So even though you're working in one, let's say R&D, don't shut yourself off to software. Don't shut yourself off to the applications domain. Don't shut yourself off to the business domain. I think being interested in all these domains will definitely help you, even though you're specializing in one area, and you never know what will interest you. So don't decide early on what is going to be your interest, and it can change. It will change with time. So even now, as I'm going through, I think right now 12 years of experience, I can have my interests can change. So being able to learn everything, or being interested to learn everything, I think is crucial, whether you're starting your career or whether you're 10 years or 15 years, which is what I am now. I think it's something that we heard when we started off, and I still think that's very applicable now, where don't shut yourself off to anything, and just see what you like doing. And also, I think one thing that I struggled with when I was younger was, or even now sometimes I struggle with this, you can get intimidated when you're working with professionals who are more senior, but don't let that phase you. Do your own learning, do your own ideating. Don't get phased by people who know more, because that can happen when you're working in a professional setup where you need to deliver. So I think that's something that I've kept in mind. But yeah, I think not shutting yourself off at any point in your career to any opportunity or interest area is crucial, according to me. Yeah, I think the same, just being flexible and open to different kinds of work and not being very fixed on what you want to do. And yeah, your likes and dislikes can change over time. And sometimes even not knowing what you don't want to do can help you choose something that probably you will start liking. So yeah, and just be open. And in Amazon, we have a principle called learn and be curious. And I guess that's something that you should continue to be however senior you go. And I mean, if it is, it may be like 10 years down the line, I might just pick up a 101 course on something and learn, and might realize, I enjoy doing this. And your interest can change over time, and not being too fixed on what you want to do is helpful. Also, the other thing is, I think, and don't have to go according to what's considered the growth trajectory. If you think progress is going up the management chain, I think that's slightly misplaced. Always, and I think companies right now offer different ways to grow. You don't have to assume that the only way to grow is to become a manager, because if you want to become a people manager, you have to make sure you are invested in who your reports are. And I think that's something which is not often told. It's assumed that the way you grow in companies is just by getting into people management. But if that's not something that you like or you think you enjoy doing right now, you don't have to feel pressure to make that switch. I think that's also something that's something somebody should keep in mind while approaching. Yeah, it's not a box that you need to tick off. It's I guess your interests can change over time. Just continue learning.
Yeah, that's nice. That triggers one more question. When you say interests, so far we've been talking more about work. And we say work-life balance. How do you keep that balance? What happens outside work?
We work less. No, just joking. No, I think at least I am pretty good about even during, so in the pandemic, we noticed our screen time increase. So we would, I mean, at least before that, we would like take half an hour to commute and then, walk up to your desk and then sign in. So there's probably like 6-7 hours of screen time, but then with the pandemic, it increased. But I think I was pretty good at, starting work at 9 and closing my laptop at 6 by 6. I think, yeah, but it's a choice you have to make. Yeah. So if you, I mean, many of my colleagues are probably all the time on and are working, I mean, connected to work. So both of us decided to just disconnect from work at 6:30, because that's we realized we are people who we can't just take in emails and not get triggered by them, or even like Slack messages. So for us, actually disconnecting helps. So like having a hard disconnect. So not having email on phones or Slack on phones, or also setting boundaries. So even with your colleagues, if you set expectations, I'm online between 9 and 6, and beyond that, only if it's urgent, you should be able to reach me at this number. And you think you're more important than you are, but you're not as important as you think you are. So I think, I think that's something that both of us found it easy to do, where we just disconnected after 6. So we were able to maintain a balance. Of course, it's called work-life harmony in Amazon. Yeah, we call it harmony. So it's
you are giving all of us goals to say how do you disconnect and how do you hold. But I still haven't heard, what do you do after work? I heard you say you like to be fit, you stay fit, you must be playing something. What keeps your interest?
So mornings we are usually the most active. So we spend a good 2 hours before work doing our whatever workouts, or we generally cook for the whole week. So cooking is taken care of usually. Evenings we watch a lot of Food Network. I mean, and over the pandemic I've started sketching daily. So that's something that I've picked up. I think Sowmya started reading more. I think we realized that we needed something out. So when we were, I guess, commuting to work, the whole business of commuting, coming back and like keeping things back, making your dinner and eating it, and then so we didn't really have any intentionally dedicated time to do something else. But because of the pandemic, we don't have to commute. I think Ramya sketches daily. I try and read something daily. We enjoy cooking food, so that's something that again we do regularly. We try out new recipes. Yeah, I think that's something that we like hiking, so weekends. But there's a sharp decline in our energy after 8 p.m. So it's like we go to bed pretty early. So that's why we said we are old. We are. You probably can't catch us awake after 9 o'clock.
I think this was a fabulous conversation and a great way to mark the occasion of the 200th episode.
So I have one question related to that. Since you said you also listened to a few of the episodes, now what would you like us to do? More, do less, do different, or do we need to do this at all?
In fact, we enjoy listening to podcasts. So. And I mean, even this episode we enjoyed because I think we like the fact that you ask questions to the person who you're interviewing, and it's like just the diversity in who you talk to is also nice to
I
see.
don't think we
And
have
probably
any-
not just limited to software, maybe extended to other fields. Just everybody's career. I mean, it doesn't have to be just software. I mean, but yeah, we enjoy the way you conduct the podcast. So we don't have any, I guess, valuable inputs to make here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks once again, Ramya and Sowmya, and all the best.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. I know we didn't realize we had so much to say, but I think it's because of the way you asked these questions. It prompted us to talk more. So thank you for that.
We thank Siddharth for the music and Anita for promoting the Software People stories.
If you like this episode,
Please subscribe on your favorite podcast client.
And spread the word in your network.
if you'd like to share your story,
Contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.